Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, broadcasting live from Channels Television here in Lagos. Well, here are some pictures that you sent into our eyewitness portal. Starting in Umuebule, Echi, River State, is this bad road. Our eyewitness reporter says that the people of Umuebule, Ikwere, Igbo have been cut off from the world, as the only road that links them to Port Harcourt is no longer motorable. He adds that schools, markets and clinics have shut down and residents are leaving the area, and is asking the River State government to intervene. And here is another bad road in Niger State. This picture shows the deplorable sight of the Wawa Kema Road in Kwamba contingent. The eyewitness reporter says that the Niger State government should act now. And finally, this picture from Bayelsa State shows the customary court in Ayama community, completely taken over by water following the overflow of a river. Our eyewitness reporter says that the government should take measures to check the floods. The federal government has frowned at the spate of electrical accidents and electrocutions, which it puts at the doorstep of the electricity distribution companies. Speaking to Channels Television on the outcome of the federal government's investigation of the death of Ms. Juliana Anekwe, a 300-level student of the University of Lagos, the Chief Electrical Inspector of the Federation, Mr. Peter Eweso, blamed the incident on the use of low-quality and undersized aluminum conductors, saying that that was the major cause of the incident. He goes on to add that the recommendations has been made to all discos on equipment specifications and that sanctions will follow in the case of non-compliance.
Find out that at University of Lagos, the Onike feeder line 11 kV, which was actually passing through the University of Lagos to feed Onike community, was in state of almost total disrepair. And we'll find out that the conductors are of different sizes, so many joints, and it is the joints and the kinks that actually cause the incident. Because what happens is that when you have a conductor that is kink, when current is jumping the gap, is arcing. And arcing over a period of time melts the conductor, so the conductor snapped. Incidentally, the conductor snapped and dropped at the time that lady and her younger sister was there. And when the cable even dropped on the ground, there is what we call protective devices at the injection substation. That one too is supposed to be a savior to have actually respond promptly and clear, but unfortunately he didn't respond, and so the conductor was on top of the girl for quite some period of time, and that's actually what led to the death of the student. After this investigation, we have issued instructions to the respective disco that were concerned that they should ensure they repair and revamp this particular network that has happened, and that they should use this one too as a guide to all other 11 kV network or 33 kV network that might be in similar situation, to ensure that what happened here is prevented elsewhere.
The crime rate in Nigeria has been on the upswing, with many expressing concerns at the situation. There has been a similar surge in the United States as well, with Detroit topping the list of the top 10 most dangerous cities to reside. However, there is a high possibility that offenders could turn their lives around if they have the right kind of environment and support. Our correspondent, Cynthia reports.
No, you're certainly not mistaken. This is actually a scene out of a movie. And the lady behind the wheel is former getaway driver turned stunt driver company owner, Georgia Durant.
I remember to get away from the cops, I had to drive over sidewalks, and it was unbelievable. I would be clicking mirrors. I was turning around a corner, clicking mirrors to another car, but I got away. And it was probably the worst thing I could have done, because then they wanted to use me all the time, and you don't say no to these guys easily. And it just kind of went from there, and I just knew I was getting in too deep, and I had to get out.
When Georgia opted to turn her life around, it wasn't easy, but it paid off in the end.
This one director just got so sick of seeing me, because every time there was a shoot, I was there. And he finally, gave me a shot. He says, okay. He said, I'm going to give you a shot. He said, show up on Tuesday. We'll see what you can do. So I showed up on Tuesday and I showed him what I could do. I came out and I formed my company, Performance 2. And I got 16 stunt drivers, trained them in precision, and now we do all the car commercials that you see on the air.
In Nigeria, we have very similar success stories of past criminals who turned their lives around, like Bishop Kayode Williams, who went from armed robber to 10-year prisoner to bishop.
When I came out, the first challenge I had was challenge of shelter. Nobody wants to accommodate me. So I took it upon myself to set up a rehabilitation center. That was my first step. I stayed in prison for almost 10 years. So I know majority, 75 to 85% of those that goes back to jail are people that have been there before, because nobody wants to give them shelter. And shelter is important to human life.
Now, for released prisoners who want to be like Bishop Kayode Williams and Georgia Durant but cannot afford it, that's where organizations like CISOSA come in. They provide former offenders with the resources they need in order to take one step forward and not 2 steps back.
So we individualize our approach to working with the men and women that we supervise. We're very pleased that as of this year, we're starting to see probably about 69% of our men and women under supervision have successfully completed supervision, and that's phenomenal. And then maybe about 17% have been revoked to prison, which is really great. So we're very, very pleased with our success rate.
Re-entry institutions help to make the process a lot easier. Unfortunately, there is still no prison rehabilitation center in Nigeria till date.
There's no rehabilitation center in Nigeria, particularly for ex-convicts. Nigerian prison ought to be a reformative center, a rehabilitation center, a center for reintegration and resettlement of ex-convicts. But there is nothing like that.
The crime rates in Nigeria and the United States are said to be on the increase daily. But there's comfort in knowing that there are re-entry organizations that are doing what they can to make a difference, and the proof is in the testimonies.
I returned to the city of D.C. in 2013 after serving 21 years. And I work around a staff of individuals that truly care, and they radiate something. They radiate something that is so powerful that can combat all the forces that are working against individuals like myself.
From Washington, D.C., Cynthia Are, Channels Television News.
Well, joining me on the news at 10 is Dr. Charles Ume. He's a clinical psychologist with the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the news at 10. You just saw that report, quite interesting, from Cynthia Are. We have seen a remarkable report of successes being made from convicts who turn entrepreneurs at one point. What perception does that give to civil society here in Nigeria?
Well, the first question you should ask is how many of them, if you look at Nigerian situation, how many ex-convicts have become a success story in our parliament? Now, the reason for low number of people actually coming out of their prison to become success in the life is simply because we don't have any laid down reformatory and rehabilitating system on ground to make these people success. For instance, when someone goes to jail, there is a reason why he went in there. There are circumstances. Did anybody evaluate to know why? If, like we have prisoners, the first aspect of rehabilitation and reformation is once somebody goes into the prison, there must be an expert who will evaluate that person to be able to know what the person's threats are, to be able to know whether the person stands a chance of reoffending if eventually discharged. Okay? That way, they plan towards the person getting out. Then the next stage is halfway home, because after prison, you don't just send the person right away to the society. because of stigma.
Interesting.
You had that what the other man was saying, because nobody would want to accept that person back immediately. But if you have centers like halfway home or a rehabilitation home for ex-convicts, that will give them a kind of soft landing to begin to interact with other people out there
Outside.
until they fully understand that this person is a changed person.
Interesting. Let me put you on hold there, Dr. Charles, and also introduce Mr. Cedric Hendricks. He joins us from the United States. He is joining us at the moment directly via Skype. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the News at 10 as well. We know and we've heard the story, as we just saw in Cynthia's report, about good stories, successes made in the US, convicts turned entrepreneurs. One very interesting name that we have here is the story of Mr. A.J. Wires. And he was convicted for armed robbery with a dangerous weapon, but today he controls a major business as an entrepreneur. He has got a wife, he's got also, you know, the whole 9 yards, as he puts it. What do you make of the situation? How does society respond to convicts in the US, especially now that you've got gun laws that has been battled by President Obama himself?
Well, here in the United States, what we have been fortunate to see in the past 6, 7, 8 years is the embrace of the concept of a second chance. And so now we are seeing resources that are brought to the table by the government at the federal, local level to enable communities to step up and assist men and women who are coming home from prison. Now, with respect to entrepreneurship, that is a pathway that we are encouraging many of our agency's clients to pursue, and that's because it is, for some, more appealing, and for others, an alternative to hearing no, no, no in the labor market as they have sought employment. We have successful entrepreneurs that we are very proud of, and I met with one just this past week who was willing to teach some of our other clients how to follow that pathway successfully as well.
Now, tell me more about the prison system in your country, in the United States, and of course, running side by side with the social rehabilitation system that it has. Is that encourageable to want to spur people to, you know, change their ways once they've gone into prison and come out?
Well, our agency is working to reach out to our men and women incarcerated in prisons across the United States. We're using video conferencing technology, much like we're doing here with Skype, to connect them to informational resources, family, and other resource and service providers. For example, just 2 weeks ago, a local nonprofit that teaches financial responsibility taught a 10-hour class by video conference to a dozen District of Columbia inmates incarcerated 150 miles away. And we're hoping to do more of that so that we are in the position to prepare our men and women to come home knowledgeable, marketable, connected to resources, in touch with their families, and as a result, having a better prospect for success.
Interesting. Let me just put you on hold there as well. Let me come back to you, Dr. Charles.
Yeah.
Is there a divide? Is there a space to cover? Is there a gap to cover between what Mr. Hendrick, has just said in the United States and the situation obtained in Nigeria? How do we reconcile those two?
Now, you can see in Nigeria, what he just said is like an utopian dream here for us. If you've been to any of Nigerian prison, you know that place is like a dead camp. Okay? Now, you can see how they were able to connect convict, because it's not only when somebody is released, there's also after release care, follow up that person to know. And that is only when you have done what they're supposed to do in the reformatory home. Some of them might go in without basic education, but due to their long stay in the prison, they become educated, and they need to use this education in the larger society, not in the prison. And that's why somebody is made to follow them up to see how they're doing. And if we have such things in place, you could see that we could be talking like that Mr. Cedric just said now. And how do we do that? We live in the world of technology. Once any inmate goes out, All his dossiers are there. The assessment and the progress is made. You can stay anywhere. All you need to do, punch and monitor.
So what do you expect the government to be doing now?
Now, all they need to do is to be able to define the essence of having a prison, because that's where the problem lies. America has their own purpose. Okay? What is our purpose in Nigeria of having detention camps or prisons, as we would say? Is it to reform, to rehabilitate? If it is, then we should put the right professional in place to begin to implement rehabilitation. It's not only when they go out. It begins when the person goes into the prison. You begin the rehabilitation.
When he comes on. I want to thank you so much indeed. Dr. Charles Ume, a clinical psychologist with the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. I want to thank you so much indeed, as well as Mr. Sandrake Hendricks, who joins us from the United States. He's of the CSOSA. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the News at 10. And when the News at 10 returns, Debt Management Office cautions on Nigeria's monitoring external and domestic debts. That's some business news. Join us again